Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Paranormal Addicts, Season 2. We are on episode 36. I have one more episode before Season 2 ends, and I'm taking a month break. And if you don't like that, too bad. It's just right.
It's time.
It's just the way it is. So, my guest this week is my good friend Rachel. We've already been talking off air, of course. We actually kicked off a minute after 6 because we were busy talking, but that's okay. What are they going to do? Fire me? I don't care. So we'll start out like we always do, Rachel. Just introduce yourself to everybody, and then we'll get started with the questions. So.
Yeah, of course. So my name is Rachel DeMicco. I am a paranormal investigator and a co-founder of Sinister Sisters Paranormal. Originally, I'm from the Bay Area in California, San Francisco Bay Area, and now I live in Nashville. I moved here in about 2019, and that's when I found my team. But, it's been a journey. I'll have to say that because I definitely have been into the paranormal my whole life. I had experiences when I was a kid. And I think investigating has brought out even more, abilities than I thought that I had. But yeah, it started when I was about 10 years old and I saw my grandfather. Hey, Candy. And so, yeah, it just kind of spiraled from there where I just wanted to know more. Like, I want to know everything. I had so many questions at that age that through my whole life, I've always just been drawn to, the other side of the veil, see what's there, why it's there, above and beyond.
And I think that's one reason why we kind of connected as soon as we started talking is because I'm losing my voice. It's really good to lose your voice as a podcast host, ain't it? But yeah, my experience has started, as we know, my experience has started as a kid too. I don't have a memory where I don't remember being able to see and communicate in some way with ghost spirits, whatever term you want to use. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. I tell people all the time, and it's actually in my book coming out January 15th. But I tell people all the time, I was actually, where I was born and raised in Western Kentucky, Paducah, it's not only the Bible Belt, it's the heart of the Bible Belt. I think we have more churches than we have people. And I was actually told at 6 years old by this church lady that I was a tool of the devil and I was going to hell. So that was kind of
ridiculous.
that was, who tells that to a 6-year-old kid? But anyway, that actually kind of started my journey because at that point, I was like, as we know, because we talked about this before, I consider my abilities gifts. Now, 6-year-old me, not necessarily. 6-year-old me was probably scared to death. But now, I consider them a gift from God, so I've learned to use them. So yeah, so I definitely relate to that. So Rachel, you get to kind of be an experiment for me. I'm changing my format in season 3, and I'm actually doing personalized questions. Usually I just do like general questions, but I'm actually going to start trying to do more in-depth, personalized questions. So you get to be my experiment. So.
I'm the guinea pig.
Yeah. So let's start out with this one. Okay. You blend evidence with evidence-based investigations better than almost anyone in the field. When did you first realize you had the intuitive side, and how did you learn to merge it with a structured investigation style?
Oh gosh, that's an in-depth question for sure. That's a good one. I mean, I think that I've always been, like I said, drawn to kind of the unknown, the unseen. But I've also been like, my favorite subject in school was science. And so, and at one point I was looking at, doing something, in the medical field, which I am kind of today. I'm in dental, but I was a medical office manager, but and my training was as a medical assistant. And so I think I very much like that science based kind of philosophy, but I sort of marry that with like the unknown and wanting to know. So I think that some of the best, I think, evidence that we've gotten on investigations kind of come at the same time. We're getting like personal, like feelings and things that are coming out, right? So I both like have the clairsentient, which is more of like an empath. Like I can feel the energy in a space, and especially if there's something that happened in that particular location, and I can really feel it within my body. But as of like the last year and a half or so, I think what's come on for me has been the clairaudience. So I've been hearing the spirits as well, and so we'll be in an investigation and we'll have cameras, of course, recording, and digital audio recorders, and things like the dead bell and a tripwire. And what makes it seem like more of a like substantial phenomena, I guess, is when you're having like that experience of feeling it or hearing it at the same time, you're capturing something that's data related, right, on a piece of equipment. So that would be more like a camera or a digital audio recorder, or like a thermal. I've got great, at Octagon Hall, I got some great thermal captures there. And so there's always been there's always seems like the best is a blend of it, for sure. Right. And I think that if we can learn to be a little bit more, which I'm, kind of working towards being a little more data driven too, that will help sort of substantiate the feelings that you get, right? Because we have the experience, and we want to like, well, I had this, amazing experience where I feel or saw or heard the spirit, right? But you can't like convey that as much. You can do your best, but unless somebody has that experience too, it's kind of like they're like, well,
yeah.
But then if you have other things to back up that experience, you could be on camera at the time, and you could be like, I'm, seeing this shadow figure, and then you're catching it on thermal, and then you get a voice on the digital audio recorder happening all at the same time. Or you're able to document some sort of change in the environment at the same time, like maybe barometric pressure, temperature changes, and all of that is kind of going off at the same time, and you're able to document those kind of things. Now you're like getting somewhere, right? Because it's not just the experience.
Right.
Even though you feel like the experience should just be enough, because it feels enough when you're going through it, but in the end, what translates over to everybody else is going to be the evidence that you capture. So
yeah, I think that's like Sarah, from Get Haunted. She made a statement when she does an investigation. She's not out to prove anything. She's just out to experience it. And I mean, I get that. When I do an investigation, my experience is what I'm worried about. But if I'm doing like a residential investigation, and yes, we do still do residentials. I know a lot of teams don't, but we still do. I think that's when the cameras and all that stuff comes in to play, because it's a lot easier to go to the homeowner and be like, this is what I captured on the thermal, or this is what I captured on the.
Sure.
So I think kind of exactly what you're saying. So I definitely agree I definitely follow that. So the next question is, you said that. Yeah, you said in some locations. Nope, that's not the. Okay, here we go. You said the land holds hauntings more than the structure. What experience first pushed you towards that theory?
Well, I think it kind of started kind of coming to fruition when we were investigating locations like Brushy and like Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, because the hospital and Brushy, right, the prison itself, were like came about later, like it, in the depending on which building you're talking about, but let's say for example, the hospital, was built in, I think, like the 60s, I would say, something like that. But anyways, there were things that happened on that land prior to the hospital being built. And there are such things as where they've experienced seeing Civil War soldiers there. They've also experienced seeing Native Americans there. And we've had experience of something that's there. It was on the third floor in the hospital there that I don't know if it was quite human. I don't think it was necessarily like evil at all. It just wasn't. It just didn't feel human the way that it was. Just showing itself. So that was definitely kind of an eye opener and made us do a little bit more research and really to see like what is going on, like what's on the land that could be holding like the haunting, and part of that leans into like the residual, right? So if the land is scarred by the Civil War, that's a traumatic event that happened. And also the same with the Native Americans. They were removed off their land there. That is very traumatic. And those kind of things we say kind of fall into the category of stigma theory. And stigma has to do with more of like the trauma that has happened in a space. And that would go the same for the hospital, right? Because there were a lot of people that died in the hospital. I mean, there were a lot of lives that were saved and babies that were born and everything that goes on in a hospital.
Everything in between.
The land itself had so much happen to it. And then when we did the research, we found out that the foundation of the hospital was made of limestone. And so one of the theories is in like stone tape theory, right? Which is also kind of residual. Sort of stone tape theory, place memory, stigma theories all kind of go hand in hand, right? They kind of work together. Whether it's the building, so the building's foundation is limestone. Limestone is known to hold energy. So if there's something traumatic that happens on the land, and then you have something like a conduit like limestone, and then also the proximity to water, like there's a natural spring and everything that runs through that area as well. So all of those things, I think, factor into what makes a place haunted. And that spirit, that doesn't mean there's not intelligent spirits there too. But I think that the one piece of that has to do with the land and what happened on it and what the land has, like the limestone, like the water and everything that kind of gives the haunting some energy.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's an interesting and valid aspect to look at. I don't know if it's a common aspect, but I look at the land when I go to places too, even some of your bigger places. So let's take Ravenly Hills, because everybody thinks since I'm from Kentucky, Ravenly Hills has to be my favorite place. It's not. Octagon Hall, maybe. But Ravenly Hills is a good place. I'm not saying anything about it. So some of the spirits that I've encountered I've been to Waverly 12 times. So some of the spirits I've encountered there has predates the sanatorium. So it goes back to the Native Americans. And so yeah, so that's the interesting thing. And then you got to take other places. So let's take Bobby Mackey's. Is Bobby Mackey's haunted? Well, obviously it's not now because it's not there. But was it haunted? I that's not my call. But if it was, it wasn't because of the club. It was something prior to it. So something in the land, something. I don't believe it was a gateway to hell. I will say that on record. But I mean, there could have been something there predating Bobby Mackey's. And the interesting question is, yeah. And the interesting question is, if there was something there, the building's gone. So where did the entity go?
It's tied to the land. So doesn't matter if just like Old South Pittsburgh wasn't there before, right? It was the land it belonged to the Native Americans. They were removed. Civil War happened there, houses, buildings, everything. I mean, throughout time, things change. Buildings get torn down all the time. That doesn't mean the energy is gone.
Right. For example, so I live in Mayfield now. I'm not proud of that fact. And my wife made me into a Graves County. But so that's where I live now. So Mayfield, most people now know Mayfield because of the tornado. And so when we had this tornado, it damaged the oldest building and the one that was known to be haunted in Mayfield. It was called Hall's Hotel. They finally had to demolish it because it could not be saved. It broke my heart because it was an important building to me. It was so I got a brick. I got an actual brick from the building, and there seems to be energy attached to that brick. And I don't say that lightly. You know that, Rachel. I don't say that lightly. It seems to be a sad energy, like this home's not there anymore. And so, yeah, the spirit's probably still with the land, with what's left of the building, So yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. I hated it when they tore it down. And the sad part was most of the building was actually in pretty good condition, but the roof got completely ripped off, and they left it unprotected for months. So water, mildew. Yeah. So that's why they eventually. A gentleman tried to buy it. He bought it for like $50, and he wanted to restore it, but of course with everything with historical societies, there were so many guidelines that had to be. It just he figured there would be help. He figured he'd get grants, and of course that didn't happen. Of course we had like millions and millions of dollars come to Mayfield, and we don't really know where that money went to. But anyway, sad situation. So
it is really sad especially when a building like that is lost, because it really does feel like the history is gone with it.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. Mayfield is known for a couple of things. It's known for the Civil War because, for the people who don't know, Kentucky actually, technically, Western Kentucky and Northwest Tennessee actually temporarily formed their own state in the Civil War. It was called Jackson, the state of Jackson. And they actually met in Mayfield to secede from the Union. And it happened in Mayfield. And then Graves County had the highest percentage of Confederate people who joined the Confederacy. It had 6,500 people joined the Confederacy from, which is probably the whole population of Mayfield at that time. But yeah, and so people know Mayfield because of that. And they also had an even more tragic thing happen. Jason and Denise, hi. They had an innocent, a 12-year-old kid. Back in those days, 12-year-olds was pretty well adored. But now, I mean, it's a kid. It don't matter. They had a 12-year-old kid that was murdered by a federal general. And for the people who don't know history, the federal was the correct term for the Yankees, for the Union. Technically, they were the Federals. So there was and you can look this all up. It's history. So the Union general in charge of Western Kentucky was actually kind of like Ulysses S. Grant. He was actually kicked out of the army at one time. He was kicked out of the army for mental health. But he happened to be a good friend with Abraham Lincoln. So Abraham Lincoln put him back in and put him in charge. So he made a statement. And he made a statement that if he couldn't kill the Confederate soldiers on the field, he'd kill them at the house or on the porch, wherever he could find them. And that's what he killed this 12-year-old kid who wasn't part of either side on his front porch.
That's so sad.
And that part's verified. Now you always get the urban legend part. The urban legend part that can't be verified is that he was buried underneath the road and he's still there.
Oh wow!
So, but yeah, so yeah,
crazy. What was the guy's name? What was the
kid or the general?
The general.
I can't remember his name. I have it wrote down and I'll send it to you later. But yeah, I'm actually the Kentucky division, which that's what they call the state. I'm the Kentucky division recruiter for the Sons of the Confederate Veterans. So I know all my history, So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I would love to know more because it's interesting.
Yeah,
I think we have to learn from history, right? Otherwise, we're going to be doomed to repeat it.
Right, exactly. And that, to me, that's what draws me to both of those things, the paranormal field and that. I just love history. That was actually so. Yeah. That's the reason I love like you mentioned earlier, Octagon Hall. I love Octagon Hall. I've been there 5 times. I plan on going back next year. I caught a piece of evidence on video, and I still have this video. I'll send it to you later if you want to see it. I was down in the library, the family library in the basement.
Yep.
And we were doing a basic EVP session, just a really basic EVP session. But something, my abilities tell me to look up. And when I looked up, I saw an apparition that looked like an 8-year-old girl. And I mean, you know the story of the 8-year-old girl. But it was different than most apparitions because most apparitions are just there. This little girl was pacing in front of the staircase. And I looked up and I know you're the same way. So when I capture something, I always try to debunk it. I don't like that term, but I always try to debunk it. Because if I can't debunk it, if I can't disprove it, then maybe I have something. So I immediately get up and I start turning on lights and talking to the other people. So ask everybody else if they saw. Well, I actually captured it on video, and there was there was like 12 or 16 seconds of this apparition just pacing in front of the staircase, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So the first thing I thought was like, well, maybe it was headlights. Well, at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's no headlights.
Right, and in the basement, you're not going to be able
to. And then I couldn't disprove it. So then Barbie, from Night Song, she was going back there. She was going the next weekend. So I sent her the video, and I was like, see if you can disprove this. And nobody was able to disprove it. So I consider that one of the best pieces of evidence I've ever captured. So
yeah. I mean, that's what the holy grail of what everybody wants, right? Is like capture an apparition on video. Yeah, that's amazing.
So the next question,
Mhm.
we're going to talk about stone tape theory and stuff. You reference stone tape theory, place memory, and stigma therapy a lot. Which of the three has proven the most accurate in your work, in your field work?
I would say stone tape theory has probably been the most, I think, maybe influential. I don't know. Accurate would be a tough call. But I think that it seems to be more of like the connective tissue, maybe for a lot of the hauntings. And when we look into further into a location, we are really looking at like what is the land have on it, what is the building made out of, and a lot throughout Tennessee and Kentucky, where we've primarily done our investigations. A lot of those buildings either have most of them are limestone. We'll just say that, but occasionally you're going to get quartz and some granite. But all of those rocks seem to hold the energy, and so if it stores the energy, then it may replay it for particular people because maybe those people are a little more sensitive and they can be tuned into that frequency. But it happens at a lot of these places. One of them that's fully limestone is Old Stone Jail. You have the walls, like the floor, the ceiling, everything is limestone in that building. So a lot of the reports that come out of there, right? A lot of like footsteps, a lot of cold spots, a lot of, voices. Even I think like the dog or something has been there at Old Stone Jail. But I think a lot of that can be sort of explained by some residual stuff. Again, I don't think that stone tape theory or place memory or stigma explains it all, right? I think that it explains one part of the haunting because I think there are many layers to a haunting.
Right.
So, it could be an intelligent spirit that resides there or comes and goes, but then you also have this residual piece. I think that the location, though, of all of those, they're kind of like hot spots. They're almost like a beacon, like a light that shines for like these energies to be attracted to. And I think that has a lot to do with, that like the geophysical components of the land and the building and everything. So that's my answer.
So for the so for the people out there that don't know, why don't you explain the stone tape theory to everybody? That because I know like when you was at my my expo, there was a lot of people who was like, "What is that?" I was like, "I'm like, you need to stay up to date with stuff." But anyway, so you go ahead and explain it to everybody for the ones who don't know.
So stone tape theory is one that actually started during spiritualist times back in England was when they kind of first sort of postulated that theory. It was I forget the name of the group now. I'm drawing a blank, but they're still around today. They're a group of parapsychologists. And back then it was like they didn't even have the group formed yet. They were just beginning. And it all kind of started with questions and things that people were noticing when they were investigating, hauntings and properties that were supposedly haunted. They started to really look at things in a different lens, right? They were going, well, what if it's not just a spirit energy, but what if it's the energy that the building, like the rocks themselves, are holding in, like they've captured it like on a tape recorder, and they just play it back so it might have to be sort of conditions are right, or the person is tuned to that frequency. but there's a great movie that was kind of based on it. It was in, I think it was in the early 70s, I want to say, but there's a movie called Stone Tape Theory. And it's about this scientific team that goes into a haunted castle in the UK area. And they start encountering like this apparition of this woman who is like, she comes out at the same time every night. They start to, at first they didn't realize that, but they start to notice that there's some irregularity with seeing this apparition and experiencing, like, she comes, like she's at the top of the stairs and then she screams and she falls down the stairs and then she's just gone. And like everybody starts to have that same experience. And then they really start to go, because they were scientists, they started to think like, well, what is really, is this really, are we seeing a ghost? Like, is there something more going on? And that's when they start to delve into, could it be the materials of the building that recorded this traumatic event that happened, where this lady died? And it just keeps replaying it over and over again on a loop. So that's essentially what Stone Tape Theory is. So it's just one sort of explanation of what some haunted phenomenon that we encounter could be.
Right. And it makes sense. I mean, it's just a deeper, more scientific, I guess, explanation of like a residual haunting. Yeah. And historically, most people have always considered, residual hauntings the most common type of, and I think I pretty well agreed with that until last year, and then I had a guest on my podcast who, that's why I have this podcast, so we can learn from each other and just talk.
Sure.
And but I had a guest, and she made the point that maybe residual hauntings are not the most common. Maybe it's intelligent, because with residual, maybe it's a haunting, maybe it's not. But with an intelligent, we actually have that communication of some kind, so we know it's there. So maybe intelligent hauntings are the most common.
Yeah, it could be. I think that it might be just sort of a slight, like a 60-40 split, something like that.
Right.
Like maybe gives, but I honestly, and this is just because of my own experiences too, I believe that they're all around us all the time. I think that another theory, and I like to call it, and I don't know if you've seen this movie, but I call it it was the movie called The Others. And
I love The Others.
Yeah,
that's my wife's favorite movie.
Yeah, Nicole Kidman, and
yeah.
She's in the home with her children, and you think she's being haunted,
but she's actually haunting.
She's dead, and she doesn't know it.
Exactly.
She discovers that she is dead. But I'm thinking, like, is it just like that? Because we've gotten some intelligent responses, like at Rosemont in Gallatin. We
pretty much know next year.
Yeah, it's great. Kate, who runs it, has been a part of our team. So,
I talked to him
yeah, she's great.
I talked
but we've talked about it at length over and over again, because we've gotten intelligent responses on the digital recorder. Like, we were in what they call the farm office. We also call it like the judge's office, because that's the family that owned was a prominent judge in Gallatin. And his family was very, well known, and they had money and they had horses, and they raised like thoroughbred horses there during the time of the Civil War. And his family owned it all the way up like 6 generations. Oh, hey, Jimmy. But it's like the responses that we got back were very much that the family is still there. and that like they're living along like a separate timeline than we are, because it seemed like the responses that we got one where it is very clearly a man, and it was a full sentence, and he said, because we were in the farm office and it was probably close to, you know, midnight, if not a little after, and the sentence we got on the EVP was, "The children want quiet." And that was amazing, because like, you know, sometimes, you know, that EVPs can be hard to, like, usually they're whispery and they're very hard to hear. You have to like play them over and over again. But this was darn clear. Like it was a full sentence, and it was clear. And it was clear that he was like, "You guys need to go. The children need to go to sleep." And that's some of the questions we now ask. We kind of modified, like, even what we do. I ask questions now of like, you know, do you sleep on the other side? What time period are you in? What year are you in? Who's the president? You know, things like that. And the other thing I like to ask is about, you know, can they see us the way that because we're trying to like see them, but can you see us?
Right.
You know, and it's interesting to find out some of those questions, that it's kind of like, you know, are you just like, once you pass on to the other side, you know, are you just on another timeline level? And, you know, all that separates you is this thin veil, right?
I mean, that's interesting. You know, and talking about EVPs. I mean, you know, I've been doing this for 33 years.
Nice.
I'm old, I know.
Oh, we're probably the same age.
Yeah, I need to go to a nursing home. We know this. My first investigation, I was 12 years old. And we'll talk about that later, maybe. But anyway, so I've got a lot of EVPs. You know, some mostly probably not the highest quality, but the best still to this day EVP I ever got is the location. Thankfully, they don't allow people to investigate anymore because it's a violently haunted location. They want it that way, though. So let me say that. So as we know, contrary to what some people on YouTube like to say, demonic hauntings are the minority of the.
Absolutely.
So, but we do have, malicious spirits. So when it comes to a malicious spirit, and this is how I explain it, Rachel. If you were a dickhead when you were alive, you're going to be a dickhead when you're dead. So,
and that's exactly what I say. We've said, we'll say it in the same sort of way. It's like, if you're a nasty asshole in life, you're going to cross over the other side. What's going to change? Your energy is already negative. And we know that the universe is a balance of dark and light, yin and yang, right? So I think to have positive energies, you have to have the other side of the negative.
Right. So so this location was the Anderson Hotel. So they have a couple of famous, infamous, whatever term you want to use, spirits there. One is a very sad story, probably one of the saddest stories I've ever encountered in a public, not a public investigation, because I don't do public investigation, but in a location investigation. She was an 18 or 19-year-old girl. She came from Michigan to this little town in Kentucky. And nobody really knows her story. But from what we gathered during our investigation and what we could put together, she was apparently trying to get over first love, whatever. Probably not first love. The evidence probably shows it may have been more like a married man type relationship. So anyway, she comes to Kentucky to try to And at first, it seems like she was trying to find answers because she for some reason with crayon, don't know why crayon. Do not ask me because I don't know the answer. But with crayon, she drew like landscape pictures, and then she would write Bible verses underneath it.
Wow.
And they're still all hanging in the room. Well, eventually something happened, and she ended up cutting her wrist.
No.
And her bloodstained mattress is still there. It's still there, and it's still
Yeah.
so that's the one no one. And like I said, that's just a very sad story. I will say she does not like to talk to guys. We had 3 guys and 3 girls there, and so when me and Dennis were trying to talk to her, and you have to remember, me and Dennis are probably the senior investigators. We were the ones with the most experience, but even with that, she did not want to talk to us. But the girls were able to get her to communicate, and they even played like Amazing Grace for her and stuff. And so anyway, so that's just a sad story. I wish I knew more about her, but
Yeah.
but the other infamous spirit there lives in upstairs, and so it's I said it was a hotel, but we're not talking about like the Ritz or the Hilton or
Right.
even Motel 6. It's a transit hotel.
Right.
For the people, for the Yankees out there that don't know what a transit hotel is, a transit hotel is like where construction workers live when they're on a job, or where homeless people live or honestly,
when you don't have a home, or you're traveling in between, or
drug addicts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy lived there, and like I said, he was a vicious spirit. So he lived there, and he drunk himself to the point that he hung himself in the closet.
Oh, geez.
Well, like I told you, the owners of this property wants it to be violently haunted. So all of his liquor bottles are still in his room, and they actually encourage you to bring him another bottle. We did not do that because that's provoking, and we do not provoke. But anyway, so me being me, the first thing I did was I went into the closet where he committed suicide, and with all my energy was instantly zapped from me. I hit the ground. They had to pull me out of the closet. So,
wow.
so we keep going, and the girls are down in the room, the little girl's room, and me and Dennis are upstairs, and nothing really major happens, but something tells me that he does not like females. So come to find out, like I said, he lives there. He also ran prostitutes in and out of the hotel. So I radio back to the girls. I'm like, because we investigate for 45 minutes, then we rotate. Take a little 10-minute drink break, smoke break, whatever you got to do. And so we would get ready to rotate. So I radio back. I was like, so I know you girls are getting ready to come up here, and I know I can't stop you. I was like, and I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm like, the spirit up here does not like females. I'm like, as the lead investigator and the leader of the team, it's my responsibility to tell you that. So we rotate, and my niece is on my team, and at this time she was 19. This was 3 years ago now. She decides to use the prostitute angle to open up communication. So she's walking upstairs, and she's like, and I still have this recording. She's like, I'm 19 and cute. Can I get a job? That's what she said. The response was immediately, and it was in Mill's voice. The response was $50 and free room.
Wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah. And then the energy escalated from there. Like Tiffany, who was at that time, she was one of my team leads. My team is a big team. My team has 16 members, so I have to have people help. Yeah, I have to have people help me, so I have 2 team leads. And Tiffany was my team lead at the time. And where Tiffany ended up being groped.
Wow.
That's the nicest way I can say that.
Yeah.
And at that point, so Jill had been getting touched and fondled for like the whole 15 minutes. And but then when Tiffany got groped, I ended the investigation at that point because it became a safety issue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
at that
look
point,
out for your team.
yeah, at that point, it didn't matter that I had drove 5 hours and had no sleep and paid however much money I had paid. But like you said, I don't worry about my safety, but my team's safety, I do worry about. So.
Absolutely. That's one of the
So-
things that we always tell if we go on an investigation. The first thing we say is like, if there's any point in time that you feel uncomfortable, you don't feel quite like yourself, you know, or it's just like the space is like overtaking like you and it's not you, you feel like this is not me, this is not my feelings, then, you know, we will step out of that space and we'll like go out of the building and we'll kind of ground ourselves and then decide what to do from there. But it's always, you know, you always want to make sure you do right by your team and that they're safe.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm all about that. So like I said, my team is a big team. And everybody's always like, well, that's a good thing. Most of the time it is, but sometimes it's like babysitting. Other times it's like herding cats. Last year, I actually had to cancel 3 investigations. And I'm like, we have 16 people on this team. I should never have to cancel anything. Nothing. I mean, there might be times where people can't come, but with 16 people, I should be able to get a team anytime I call and say, let's go. And but even as big as we are, you can't just join Canton Paranormal. There's
shout out. There you go. Have to do the shameless plug.
Yeah, and we do still residential. So if you're in Tennessee or Kentucky, give us a call. Anyway,
flash the number on the screen.
2786753. No, so if somebody wants to join our team, I'm all about educating people at this age. I've been doing this 33 years, and so I like to educate. We have a certain loud minority that thinks that they should be higher on the totem pole than new people, and it's not about that. It's about educating and helping each other. So that's me. I love training. I love educating people. So if somebody comes and says, I want to join Canton Paranormal, we have a process. It's not like, so the first thing is me and one or both of my team leads does an interview. We meet you usually at Hardee's. I don't know why Hardee's. I guess because I can get 2 chicken wraps for $5. But anyway,
hey, you gotta go get the good stuff.
So we meet there, and then we do an interview. And if we think that they'll fit in, then they come to our meeting. We do monthly meetings, so they come to our next meeting. And then if the team thinks that they'll fit in, then we have an orientation. And the orientation is we actually print it out. It's 3 pages. It explains everything. It explains that paranormal investigating is not like you see on TV.
Nope.
You don't get 5 interactions with a spirit in 45 minutes. You might not get anything in a 12-hour investigation. But I like to tell people it's like fishing. You could be on the lake all day and not get anything. But if you get a bite, it's the most exciting 2 seconds of your life. And so it
is. That's for sure.
So we explained that, and we also explained that at first we don't want everybody to go out and buy an Ovilus or an SLS or you need a flashlight, you need a voice recorder, and a notebook and pen. That's what you need. Everything else I have. If you want to use it, maybe. If you break it, you have to buy it.
Yeah.
But until you find out that if paranormal investigating is for you, I don't want people going out and spending the ungodly.
It's an expensive hobby, right?
It is, and I am thankful that my agent has decided that I need to get paid to go to these conventions, because at least I'm not as broke as I used to be. And I'm hoping people buy my book. Next month. I don't know why they would buy it, but I don't know why they wanted me to write it. But everybody kept saying can't write a book, so I wrote a book. It's actually interesting. I enjoyed it. My personality comes out in it, so that's a good thing. And my title is still the best title of any paranormal book there is. I don't care what anybody says. Even though our friend Gavin does not like my title, he thinks it's too long. He said your title is too long. He's like, but I like my title. And my title is, for the people who don't know, the title of my book is "Don't Buy Generic Batteries, and It's Probably Not a Demon." The memoirs of a paranormal investigator.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's right.
And that's all you need to know. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. And my foreword, or whatever it's called, my little introduction, it was written by Aaron G. Thompson. So, nice. It took me a year to get it, but that's okay. He's a busy man, I guess. I tease him. So I don't know how well you know Aaron, but Aaron's a friend of mine. So Aaron took a year, the whole 12 months period, away from social media. He decided he was, get away. So for 12 months, unless you were like his actual friend, there was no Aaron G. Thompson. So, so in this 12 months, he also decided to take a real job, and he's a news reporter for a TV station.
Oh, nice.
And he also got married. So all this.
That's a busy year.
Yeah, and then so I was talking to him, and I was like, he's like, yeah, I'll write it. So I did get it. So I was like, hey, where's it at? He's like, I'll have it for you. It's Rock Island.
Ah.
Did he have it at Rock Island?
But he did get it to you.
He finally got it, and it's good. I mean, it was worth waiting for. I mean, he said very nice words. I mean, he was talking about like all my experiences, and he's like, and even though mine and Kent's path seems similar, and it was he's like, these experiences are just Kent's. He's like, and that's the thing about Aaron. This is kind of what we talked about off air before I told you we had to get on air. So when I first met Aaron, his now wife, at that time his fiance, who's also his manager, reached out to me and said Aaron would like to be part of your expo. And I was like, well, at this point, I had no idea who Aaron G. Thompson was. I knew him. I knew 28 Days Haunted. But if I'm judging anybody by that, I don't want them to be part of my event. Nothing against those people. It was an interesting concept, but the actual product was what the producers wanted us to see. Oh, I think I'm saying this nicely without being rude, but you understand what I'm saying. It was definitely Hollywood. It wasn't so. So that's all I knew. That's all I knew, and so I was like, okay, so this is how this is going to work. I'm like, if Aaron wants to be at my expo and stuff, he has to be on my podcast. I'm like, I have to get to know Aaron. So he came on my podcast. And the thing that was interesting is I actually hate the fact that that most people only know him for 28 Days Haunted, because he's been investigating almost as long as I have. And he actually has his own interesting theories, about investigating and stuff. And he actually calls himself an afterlife researcher. That's his term. Yeah. And I like that. And so, yeah, but it's sad, and even me, I hate that I judged them based on 28 Days Haunted, but we're not seen on TV, and we don't want to be. We're proud of that fact, so yeah. But he's a good friend, and so yeah. So we have a few more minutes. We got 5 minutes. So I always go over. It's okay. They're not gonna fire me. They like me. They do cut my links sometimes from Get Haunted. Sometimes that link gets cut. That's why I have 3 links, so everybody can still watch me. So let's talk about folklore. Okay.
Okay.
So when exploring folklore, what is the most surprising legend you've uncovered that actually lined up with the evidence?
Hmm. Well, I'm going to go back to California for this. So, the Winchester Mystery House. So that, if anybody doesn't know about it, it's in San Jose, California. It was built using, I mean, she didn't build it, but she hired the people who built it. Sarah Winchester. She was the wife of one of the Winchester brothers who own Winchester Firearms. She became a very wealthy woman because of the sale of the weapons. And so did that whole family. But she felt that she was cursed. She felt that she was cursed because her husband died, their little baby died, and then I think that it was another family member of hers close by. I can't remember which family member it was, but it was another one. So she lost 3 significant people in her life in a short amount of time. So she felt that she was cursed. And back then, it was during spiritualist movement of the 1800s, and she decided she wanted to do a seance to try and connect with, her husband and baby, and because she was definitely grieving, and they definitely mourned very differently than we do now. But she tried on multiple occasions, and what came through the folklore or the legend around it is that she made contact with other spirits that said that she was cursed because of that the family made guns that killed people. And so those spirits wanted vengeance on the family for them being killed by this firearm that they created. And so, they told her the only way to avoid her dying essentially was to continue to build. And so she built this, or had built like this amazing mansion. And essentially there are stairs that lead to a door. When you open the door, it's just a wall. It's very random. There's like drop offs in the middle of the house to like nothing below. Like you basically fall through the floor if you weren't paying attention. They put slats there now. But the rooms are just, it's like a puzzle almost that doesn't quite fit together. It's really interesting. But it's really interesting how the energy of that place is. So I had been on there living in the Bay Area for so long. I had gone multiple times to do the tours there because they don't really weren't doing investigations where you could, be there on a public investigation. They may do something like that now. But back then they didn't. And one of the things though, they invited us, they were going to do a brand new tour, which was they were calling it like a behind the scenes tour. It was parts of the house that they had never shown to the public before. And so they were sort of beta testing it, and they asked people who had been there frequently enough if they wanted to participate and take that tour and see give our feedback. And so, I was excited to do that because they're seeing parts of the house I've never seen before. And so we went, it was like to the very top of one of the parts of the house. And it's like in this sort of look that's kind of like an attic space, except for it's enormous, very high vaulted ceilings. But everything was just timbers. There wasn't sheetrock up or no walls or anything. There was just like boards everywhere. So it was very roughed in. And when we walked in the space, I started to get like dizzy, like everything started to spin for me in the room. And I thought I was going to pass out. So, I go to my husband and I was like, I think I'm going to pass out. Like, I'm feeling really, really dizzy in here. And he said, well, come out of the room and just see if you could get some fresh air. And I said, well, I really need to know what this room is. And so he said, just stand out here in the hallway and see if we can hear what the tour guide says. So as soon as I stepped out of the room, it like stopped. The spinning and everything stopped. And so I stood out there and listened to what the tour guide said. And he said, well, this space is what we think was her original seance room. Later on, she moved it to different parts of the house, but she was like, I was like, that makes so much sense right now, because it really felt like it was a portal. Like everything was just spinning for me in that space. And so, I was like, well, maybe part of the folklore is true. And that, she really did do seances that opened something up in that portal that allowed these spirits to communicate with her. So, I mean, if anybody has the chance to go out there, I highly recommend it. It's an amazing place.
I've always thought it would be an interesting place. I don't know how active I believe it is, but I think it's an interesting place. I would go. If somebody said, let's go, I would go right now. It's probably on my top 4 places that I'd like to go. Alcatraz is number 1, by the way.
Yeah, I've been there too.
Yeah, and the thing that's interesting about Alcatraz is most people only think about the prison, but it was a Native American settlement before. Yep. So you have, and then it was a fort for a while. So you have, it's just an interesting place.
Federal.
So,
it was like a military fort, and then it became like a federal prison. That housed like military sort of prisoners of war and that kind of thing as well. So it does have a lot of layers to the rock. It's a very heavy feeling when you get there.
Yeah. So I got a couple questions I want to get, and then we'll let you go. I know we'll pass the time, but okay. So I worked hard coming up with these questions. We're going to get to some of them. Do you think some locations are created haunted because of the community belief or superstition rather than actual events?
It could be. I mean, that makes me think of Larissa's what they went to do at 24 Hours in Hell. So they did the Hell House, and she was talking about that space, and they have a haunt. They have a haunt there, where you can go during Halloween, and they have like a haunted attraction. This was the place where they filmed the Hell House movies, and so the haunted attraction uses parts of that film, and they recreate it. But now that building itself is there's actual hauntings happening that are mimicking the movie and the haunted attraction. So that makes you think that fear, and that's a human emotion, can imprint on a space, and that imprint can then become the haunt, right? So it's sort of like we created that.
I mean, kind of like, that's like haunted objects, whether it's a haunted door or whatever, that's kind of like a hot button thing in the paranormal field. We, especially if we talk about Annabelle, or, there's some people who are like, oh, Annabelle is evil. And then we have some people, like one of our friends, that's like, Annabelle is a fake, whatever. I don't know what my opinion is. I probably,
I'll just say I got to be around her. Were you there?
I definitely went there. So my first guest this season on the podcast was Dan Riviera.
Okay.
So Dan was a real good friend of mine. So let me just say this, because I don't want to get too emotional on my own show. So Rock Island was a very emotional time for me, because just like I consider myself if Rob's still on here, he can comment on this statement. I consider myself the stepchild of the Get Haunted because I'm way down here and everybody else is, So Rock Island was the first time that I met Rob. It was the first time I met Sarah. It was the first time I met Katie. It was the first time, but it was also, but I mean, all those people already family,
Mhm.
So, and then but it was my first.
You're still there.
So it was emotional, but it was also supposed to be the first time that I got to meet Dan. So, but I consider Dan family, and I consider him a friend. Now, even though I had never met Dan face to face, we talked on the phone weekly. The last time we talked on the phone, it was a 45-minute conversation while I was supposed to be grocery shopping. I was in Ruler with my wife, and we were grocery shopping, and me and Dan was talking about. We were talking about classic horrors and everything, and not even really paranormal. So yeah, that's it. So Rock Island was emotional, and especially the Devil on the Run tour because that was Dan's thing. And of course I'm friends with Wade and all them. So I did go. Matter of fact, I asked Rob. I was like, should I go? And he's like, "Are you going to spend $5,000 to go to the house?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Then you should go." So I went, and it was emotional. Father Bob it has the same agent I have, so I already knew Father Bob. So it was really emotional. So yeah, I got to be around it. So what's interesting about all that, and I'll say all that to get to this. So Dan and all those people, they don't necessarily. This is how they explained it to me on the podcast. They don't necessarily say Annabelle is haunted because they don't believe God would do that to a door. But Mr. Kirby asked. This was his question. But so think about it this way, especially doors or anything like that. Sometimes those are a kid's best friends, especially like a abused kid or a sick kid. So all that energy is attached to that object, and then more energy and more energy and more energy. So at what point does that energy become an entity of itself? Mm-hmm. And that's when we have a possessed object. It's not really the object's possessed. It's the energy has become its own entity. Does that make sense? You follow me?
Yep. That makes perfect sense.
I
agree.
So yeah, I'm not.
And I didn't feel like a huge negativity off of Annabelle.
No.
Saw her, I felt more of it. There was another doll that was there that had like, I think they said it was black magic or something, and it had actual human remains in it, and that's the object I felt the most energy that might have been considered a little more negative off of. And they said that's the one object in the whole entire exhibit that had actually killed someone. So I mean, there's a big hype because Hollywood hyped up Annabelle. So
that's an important thing. And that's what people out there have to realize. The TV shows, the movies, that's Hollywood, that's the producers, that's what they want you to see. It's not necessarily, it's not reality. And I have nothing against people out there making money doing this. I mean, if I could make money doing this, I would love to. But I wouldn't sell my soul the way some of these people have. If I'm ever on TV and I've been invited to do a couple shows, and I'll probably end up doing them, but I want to make sure that I'm projected as an investigator and the way it's really like, so it may not be the best entertainment, but it's going to be real. And then, so yeah. And
but that's what people need to see. People need to see reality and what we do. And what our passion is, and sometimes it's sitting in the dark for hours doing nothing, right? Nothing.
And that's the reason I ended up deciding to do it. I was really I was really divided for a long time, and then I asked people like Rob and other people their opinion, and they basically said the same thing. They're like, that's what people need to see. They need to see the real, and then Sarah, we're talking about, and this will be my last question, then we'll let you go. Talking about the para-pop culture. That's my word, para-pop culture. I like it. Talking, I don't have problems with anybody until you start making me have a problem with you. So a couple of true stories real fast, and then we'll get to the question. So I was at Smoky Mountain Terror down there in Tennessee. I was one of the special guests. And well, for the people who don't know, Smoky Mountain Terror is actually more of a horror convention, and they kind of throw a bone to the paranormal field. So there was like 5 teams there. There was Outlaw Paranormal, there was SRS, there was me, there was Josh Morris, and then there was this one team who likes to run around in tight jeans. The initials are PET, so my problem with them was not that they're making money. Like I said, I'm all for that. My problem is they were selling an 8x10 picture, not even an autograph picture, an 8x10 picture for $60. So that I do have a problem with it. And Jimmy, yes, we had a great time. And so me being me, I mean, you know me, Rachel. So me being me, they're right beside me. I walk over there and I call them out on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are they going to do to me? I don't care. And so they look at me. This guy's probably like 6'4", and he looks at me and he's like, and so anyway, so they look at me and their response was, "Yeah, that's fair." That was the response. So, and I will say this.
Sign of blood, exactly.
and
dotted with like some gold in there.
so anyway, so I will say this to them. As far as me, they treated me with professional courtesy. I mean, they were really nice. And I'll be honest, the only reason I even talked to them is my team lead, Jill's son, is a huge fan of theirs. Mm-hmm. So I went over there, and I mean, to me, they were nice. They gave me like free bracelets, and so. But me, I also called it out because they had just collaborated with the worst of the paranormal field a week before this on video. And I won't mention their names either, but it starts with a K, an S, and a K. Mm-hmm. And they're the Spice Girls of the paranormal field. And so I called them out of that. And of course, their response was, again, that's fair. And, so with that being said, that's all fine and good. But this is when I have a problem with people. I don't care about all that. If you can get somebody to pay $60 for your picture, go for it. But what I have a problem for it is when you start making it harder on real investigators. So there's a couple of locations, and you mentioned them both. Like you mentioned 2 of them recently. So Old Harriman Hospital, Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, and Octagon Hall. So these 3 locations, 2 of them are very close to me because I've been there multiple times. South Pittsburgh and Octagon Hall. So that 2 years ago, we get there, and instead of the usual 1 sheet that we have to sign of the waiver, there's now 3 sheets. Mm-hmm. And when we get to the 3rd sheet, we're informed that we cannot go live, and we cannot release video, until it's approved by the location. And they specifically told me it was because of Sean Covey. And so that's when I have an issue. When you start faking stuff so bad that it makes the field look bad, and it makes my job harder.
It's like one team ruins it for the rest of us.
Right.
It's like one bad apple doesn't mean we're all like that. Or quite opposite.
And the thing, it really hurt me at Octagon Hall because me and Bear and were good friends. So, and I've been to Octagon Hall like 5 or 6 times. So I'm friends with all those. So I'm like, this is me. They're like, it doesn't matter. And and so that's, and the thing is, at Harriman Hospital, they specifically told me why there was that rule, and that was because these 2 kids were running around in their skinny jeans, yelling everything was a demon every 15 minutes. And there's no demons at South Pittsburgh. There's no demons at Harriman. There's no demons at Octagon Hall. They're all active. All 3 places are really active, but they're not demonic. So
that's correct. They all have actually like they have a lot of the history that we talk about. There's a lot of layers of history there, and that history deserves to be respected.
Right. And talk about history in the Harriman Hospital, you have the hospital, but you also have the speakeasy and the roller skate rink, and all that stuff that people don't even know about or think about, So like you said, so anyway, that's my question. So the question is, how do you feel the parapop culture has affected the field, both negatively and positively?
Well, the only positive thing is that, like, it's out there. Like, people everywhere will talk about it, when before maybe it was a little more obscure and maybe they thought it was more occult to it. But I think it's probably hurt us as well, obviously, because of what you had mentioned. Like, certain locations now won't allow us to go live for the people that follow us. And that's hard. That makes it hard on us to be able to go out there and do what we do and truly investigate. And so, the thing is, the field is big enough for everyone, right? But it's like, people have to respect one another. Like, that's the bottom line. Treat the locations, treat the people around you, other investigators, learn from them. Don't, criticize them. Don't, treat them like you want to be treated. Like, that's the bottom line.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Community, not competition, when it comes to other teams. Community, not competition. And I like to tell people, so one of the rules of Can Paranormal, when we go to a location to investigate, whether it's a residential or whether it's an attraction, we respect the location, we respect the people, we respect the living, the not living, and everything in between.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we get.
That's our rules too.
That's kind of, and then after this, I really am going to go. But that's kind of where we go with provoking.
We don't do that.
So to me, provoking is about intention.
Right, 100%.
Because there's some locations, for instance, a prison, places like that, where you may have to be more assertive, but you can be assertive without being
respectful. Yeah.
So it's all about the intent. And this is how I explain it to everybody. So I wouldn't go to Rachel's house and yell at you and yell at everybody at your house and expect a positive experience. So why would I do that to a spirit's house? First of all, we don't understand exactly what we're dealing with. That may be a very powerful spirit that you just made mad. So why do that? So Rachel, tell everybody what you have going on, how to contact you guys, all that fun stuff, and we will let you go.
Well, we're just starting to plan our 2026, so
we are too.
More to come on that, but
maybe we can collaborate.
I would love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we could do like Red Sea or South Pittsburgh, one of those places. That would be good.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love that.
Anyway,
Yeah,
go ahead.
great
I'll try.
experiences.
I'll
But
try not
yes.
to interrupt you again.
No, it's fine. I will interrupt to take a collaboration anytime. But anyway, yeah. So people can find us, Sinister Sisters Paranormal, both on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and our own website, sinistersistersparanormal.com. So that's where
And I guess we will let everybody out of this little secret. You can be the first announced guest for the 2026 West Kentucky Paranormal Expo.
yes.
So,
Yay. I'm back.
so Rachel will be coming back this year, and she will be joined by Larissa
Yes.
and Santiago, and Larry.
Gavin.
And
Will Gavin come this year?
Gavin is welcome. He's been there twice, so I don't know. It depends on his schedule because he's so busy. But Gavin's always welcome to all my events. You know, like I said, me and Gavin go back decades. So yeah, so he's definitely welcome. Hopefully he'll come this year because he missed last year.
That would be awesome because it's team.
Thanks for joining us, Rob.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Rob.
So, all right, Rachel, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
We will talk again soon, and we will definitely collaborate next year. I got a couple places. I got a couple places that I'm not sure. Maybe you've been to, maybe you haven't, but they're definitely in Tennessee. Have you guys been to Lynchburg?
Yes. Done
Both
the funeral
locations?
home. Yeah, the funeral home and the jail.
Yeah. I've done the funeral home, but I hadn't done the other one yet. So I want to go back and do both. And
they're
of course,
great people. I love Brian and Mallory and Jory. Hey, Larissa.
we were just talking about you.
Maybe her ears were burning or something.
Yeah. And all right. So, but we won't talk about that because I'm just starting to plan my calendar for next year too. And there's a couple of places locally that would be good places because they're historical. One's in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, so not too far from me. But it was a 1812. But it was a mansion. I've been there, and you can ask Jimmy about it. They actually filmed there. It was one of their episodes of that they did on Scare Network. They actually have an episode of it on Scare. But that would be. But anyway, we can talk about that forever. Thank you for being on the show. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me close us out. Here we go. Ready.